what I really believe with the 49ers is I think they have a more talented roster this year than they did in 2019. I think they're going to be really leaning heavily on the run. I think the Jimmy Trey thing, one of the things I talk about that whole scenario is that Trey, we have the luxury of being able to sit and wait with Trey, which is really exciting for this football team because everybody sees the shiny new car that's in the garage and and rightfully so. It's really exciting what he's going to be able to do with this offense, and especially paired with Kyle and the way he sees the game. But to go out and like play him right away, I don't think is the right move because you don't pay Jimmy $24 million to sit the bench. And then once Trey's the lead guy and you make him your guy that you're going to go with, there's no going back. It's not, and we saw that in Miami. It's not a situation where, hey, we're going to go with Tua, and then all of a sudden he went with Ryan Fitzpatrick. That messes with the quarterback's confidence coming out of college. I think this exciting thing about this situation is that they have the luxury to be able to wait and develop Trey in the passing game. It's not Madden. I don't think someone coming in is just plug and play. You have to have an understanding of coverages and blitz packages and how defenses are going to defend you. And then also once you have film out there as a quarterback, what can you do off of that? Because you're going to get a lot of different looks because these coordinators are smart in the NFL.
He thinks this Niners team is more talented than the 2019 team that went to the Super Bowl. Did that comment surprise you?
A little bit, yeah. Now, the difference, though, is there was a lot of unknown coming into that year. They had been bad the previous two seasons, right? They hadn't won. So when they started 8-0, it was a really big story because it somewhat came out of nowhere. Now, I did think people thought by that point in time they had just gotten Bosa. They drafted Deebo Samuel. Jimmy was coming back off the ACL. People thought they could be competitive. And when we say competitive, compete for like a wild card spot. I don't think most people, including ourselves, I would say anyone, diehard Niner fan, was picking them to be the number 1 seed, 13-3. It was a pretty powerful year, right?
Yep.
It wasn't completely out of nowhere. Like, it wouldn't be the equivalent of like the Lions making the playoffs or something, but the way in which they played was pretty nuts. So I understand it because this team is much more established. We've seen a lot of guys from that team play well. Like we have evidence when Bosa's healthy how good he is. They've add Trent Williams. They had several drafts since then. Fred Warner and Kittle have really, really established themselves as elite players. So I get it. I think it actually makes more sense when I hear him say it. Now, once I saw that team play, I have a hard time. Like, I'll be very surprised if like we're in December and that team is like even if the record's not quite as good, if they're as consistently as badass, that team every fucking week was just bringing it.
Right.
Guy, in their losses, remember the loss on Monday Night Football to Seattle? That thing was a war zone.
But the overtime.
It's like, yeah, so for 17 weeks, they were just a heavyweight fighter.
How about the Ravens game was one of the most, that game was.
Oh, my God.
And then that
Saints,
stretch, they kicked the Packers' ass. They came back and lost to the Ravens in the mud. Then they went out and beat the Saints in one of the best games ever. Then they came back and they lost to the Falcons, right? And then it's like, well, God, now they got the Rams and the Seahawks. How are they going to pull this off? They just gave it all away.
Did get walked off by Julio.
Got walked off by Julio, and it felt like they had just let it slip away because they got the Rams and the Seahawks. Are you really going to win both those games? And then they came back and won both those games by a combined 8 points or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, specifically to the point that Staley made on the show. To me, the linchpin of the whole thing, because I think we could go position by position and go, yep, this receiver group could be better than that receiver group that added Emmanuel Sanders like halfway through the season.
Because who they really have to start the season, like Debo.
They had
Bourne.
Debo, right. I think, from a corner standpoint, they did have Richard, and we talked about corner depth here. But if Verrett's healthy all year, we'll see what they get from the rest. Were they great at corner? No, they were switching guys in and out in the Super Bowl. The linchpin of the whole thing is Kinlaw. Like, that's like, if we're going to say this team is more talented in the end than the 19 team, Kinlaw doesn't have to be as good as Armstead, but he's just got to be good enough that because the defensive line was so dominant that year.
You see. Well, I haven't seen the practice report yet. On Wednesday, he was a DNP knee.
Whereas
You're right.
Armstead was one of the most impactful players in the NFL that year.
But Kinlaw's not replacing Armstead. He's replacing Buckner. And Buckner
Sorry,
was
I didn't mean
their best
Armstead.
player.
I meant Buckner. Buckner.
So it's like that already is an L. Like I think it's fair to say it would be one of the greatest upsets in American athletic history if Kinlaw becomes a better player than Buckner. Everyone would agree, probably beside Kinlaw's family might still argue that. Like even a diehard #faithful type person. But can he just be like a really good player? Just someone where you feel like, this guy's a better player. I don't know how he's going to look tonight, but clearly Vita Vea. I'm saying his name right?
Yeah, Vita Vea.
Remember last year he shattered his leg. But those first couple years, people were like, did they overdraft him? And then by last year, once he got with Bowles, you're like, God damn, this guy's an ass kicker. And he just kind of had found his niche. Can this guy... See, I think you even question, like, when he's on the field, is he that impactful? I'm even like, I'll take a step back. Can I just count on this guy for 35 snaps a game? Like, I would say right now, my answer would be hell no. Right? He's just not a dependable player. Like, that's the one thing I'll give Armstead a lot of credit. Armstead really, and I would have bet against this 3 or 4 years ago, Armstead is very dependable. Like, I don't know how good he's going to be on a weekly basis, but I feel very confident 91's going to be there. Right? He's just going to show up. Now, I think you want more because he looks so big. Now, he doesn't look big. He is massive, but he plays. And I know that if he's got enough talent around him, Armstead's fine. Armstead he would start for every team in the league. Like, can we get to a point by midseason like, oh, Kinlaw's the type guy that every team in the league would want? Like, right now, he's a pretty big question mark. But I'd say is he their biggest question mark right now?
Yeah.
Besides, like, obviously quarterback play.
Yeah, besides quarterback play and health,
They
everything
drafted
else,
him 14th.
everything else. But the deal was never he has to be better than Buckner. That was never the deal that we all made.
No, it was a
right?
money move and a big.
And it was
IU.
You add somebody else, and okay. But to me, if this team's gonna look like they're more talented, I think they can definitely be more talented at receiver with Ayuk. Kittle is Kittle, right? At offensive line, they got, ironically, as you brought up to Joe, we talked to Trent Williams over Joe Staley, which is kind of crazy. You wish you had both those guys. You add Mac. The running backs, Mostert, Sermon, I think from a talent standpoint, Hasty. Breida was really good. Juszczyk is Juszczyk. Defensively, it's pretty similar. Fred Warner, you'd have to argue, is probably better than he was then.
He's better now, yeah.
So I don't think it's that crazy. I think Joe's onto something, but it's going to be hard to say it if the defensive line isn't more productive than it was that year.
Would you rather take a pick when you draft high and just go, we just whiffed? An AJ Jenkins, just the guy is not good enough. Or would you rather have one where it's like, a Reuben Foster, whatever, off the field issues, a Kinlaw, let's just say he just always is battling injuries, but you go, God, the talent was there. We just couldn't keep him on the field.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you could argue it's irrelevant.
I think the difference would be with AJ Jenkins, you probably cut bait faster.
He's also like 29th pick or whatever it was, right? It was at the end of the round.
Yeah,
there is a difference
for example,
between pick 28 and pick 14. There
Solomon Thomas at least played for the 49ers, right? AJ Jenkins didn't bring him anything.
Yeah, I think Cleveland Farrell and Solomon Thomas are two examples of clearly those guys should not have been picked 3rd and 4th, but for however many years they played a ton of snaps for you every game, right? Until obviously Solomon snapped his leg or whatever. But those guys are they're not good what you would want out of the position, but they're NFL players. You can play with them.
Yeah.
Kinlaw, what would you put his over/under on starts this year? Double digits?
If you told me right now they play 17 games, he starts 14, we would obviously both take that. What's the number you would roll the dice?
Do you feel confident he gets to 10?
10.
10, you're getting close to half the season.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think they would sign up for that. Unless
you would not take 10 right now. You would take
right
14, but you would not take 10, I don't think. You'd try to get more.
You would not take 10.
10's.
Because 10, well, if he doesn't start 10, that means he's missing, right?
Yeah, now.
He's out.
Here, if I was going to play counterpoint, I'd be like, all right, guy, great take. Kinlaw is the linchpin, whatever. If Bosa plays 16 or 17 games, you are pretty deep on the defensive line. That was, they didn't want to cut anybody. We went to practices. We saw these guys. They do have good players.
But the way they made the Super Bowl was they had by far those 4 guys beat the shit out of everybody.
I know, but if I told
Like
you
Bosa,
right now,
Bosa can't. Bosa, obviously, I am chalking up Bosa for a lot. But go back to like Khalil Mack with the Raiders. Let's say Bosa does like something like that, where he's just like one of the best players in the league. To be a great unit and just a great defense, you do need those other guys to kind of fucking be part of it.
Agreed.
And Armstead is very dependent on other humans.
yeah. But if I told you right now, you get 16 games out of Bosa, can they be a top 8 defense? I think you'd say yes. I think they're deep enough on the D-line. If you got that from Bosa, you feel good about Armstead, that's enough. So
I agree.
So Joe, I mean, he was around it. Like, he's seen it. This is Joe Staley we're talking about here.
Buckner is one of the more dependable players like the last decade.
Buckner, yeah.
But DeForest, yeah.
Yeah. So
it just does show you, I think, that two good examples, right? I mean, obviously they would have done the equivalent. Like if they could have got rid of Buckner for Trent Williams, the equivalent of defensive tackle, they would have. Like it's not always that easy. They needed the money. It was just a complicated situation, and they made a tough decision. That's part of the business. Belichick's been doing it for years. You're not always going to be right. When you do the plug and play guy, when I get rid of someone to go sign, Stephon Diggs available or whatever, you just know what you're getting. There is much more unknown, and we're seeing it right now with Kinlaw, and he's going to be a fascinating guy to watch when you do it for a draft pick. Because the moment the trade's made, you're like, it sucked, but I'd say most Niner fans are like, damn, we just got pick 13. Because remember, they traded, but they got 13 right off the bat. It's like, okay, I didn't want to trade DeForest Buckner, but at least they got a boatload back. But then ultimately, you got to turn that into, and they did. Like they got Ayuk was part of that ultimately with that trade back. But man, the Kinlaw, it'd be one thing if he was a corner or a wide receiver. I mean, he is a defensive lineman, right? He should be one of their core guys. I just don't even know. Like, I know he's talented, but the knee thing, man, huge guys, sometimes that stuff doesn't go away.
No. Nate on YouTube says, so if Ayuk misses a lot of time this year, some of you will say he's a bust too? No. I mean, clearly Brandon Ayuk has the talent to be a really good NFL player. Right now, availability, we just got to get, I don't want to go 4 weeks and then 1 week with a groin and then 6 weeks and then 1 week with something else, a hammy. So that's going to be a part of his story. But I think there is a question right now. If Kinlaw is healthy for 17 games, is he an elite first-round level producer? Ayuk clearly is that. Like, there's no question about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Bust is not on the table from a production standpoint for Ayuk.
No. Well, he was already productive as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, he's
with bad quarterbacks.
So, all right, John. Before we go any further, let's tell the people about DraftKings. Our DraftKings game is full. You got left out. Here's the solution. Get in our DraftKings league, which is linked in the YouTube and in the podcast. Join the league. That way you are the first to get the invite to our game next week when we set it up again. It's 200 people in this game. That's as big as we can make the game. Maybe we can make bigger ones. I don't know. But promo code HAM. Sign up right now. Get yourself ready. Life's all about preparing. Get yourself ready for week 2 right now. Sign up with code HAM. Here's the other thing. You don't have to be in our game. Sign up with code HAM and get in a bunch of DraftKings games. You don't even have to. If you're stuck with Gus Edwards, somebody is stuck with Gus Edwards, and now go play daily fantasy. That's the lesson here.
You know what? I might have set my lineup last night when I was just kind of laying in bed before I went to bed. I'm like, I'm just going to put together a phantom lineup, because what you do is you get $50,000 and different guys are, have different amounts next to them, and you got to fit in your lineup under the salary cap. Kind of like, I guess Gus wouldn't have been in our game because we're only doing Sunday only. But if you want to do that, you never get stuck. DFS is the only way to go. Download the DraftKings app, promo code HAM. I can't recommend enough. We've been loyal DFS players. I mean, you're talking about two guys that never played fantasy our entire life up until like 2 years ago.
Straight
and
haters.
Now, if I'm in the mix, it's fun. I am a believer.
Yep. DraftKings, promo code HAM. Sign up right now. Get in a game this weekend. If you want to play a $2 game, it exists. You want to play a $100 game, it exists. And also get in the Haberman and Middlecoff League. We'll be playing every week at DraftKings, promo code HAM when you sign up. Also, podcast brought to you by Manscaped.com, promo code HAM for 20% off and free shipping. As someone DM me on Instagram, you guys, I send you photos of my Tito's. Should I send you photos of me using my Lawnmower 4.0?
No, you should not. Send
Oh,
those
yeah,
to
yeah,
your
no,
wi-
definitely not. No.
Send
What John
those to
said.
your wife or girlfriend. Because here's what the Lawnmower 4.0 is for. It's for the male pubic region. And we all know that sometimes it gets bushy down there. It needs to be cleaned up. And you need to trim the cojones. Well, here's the thing about the 4.0. And I could speak for the 3.0 and the 2.0. They were safe. I never had to worry about nicks and cuts. I've never been cut from using any Manscaped product. It really, as someone who's been trimming now for probably 15 plus years, it is easily the best. Yeah, I mean, I started getting it probably first couple years, just let it grow. So proud to have something down there. And then you realize, you got to keep that thing trim. And that's where the Lawnmower 4.0 comes in. But free shipping, promo code HAM. They also have the nose trimmer. So if you got some, some hair sticking out, you put that bad boy in there and you cut it. Because you don't want to be tweezing, right, guy? Because that gives you
tweezing. You don't want to be. You get scissors up in there, and now you're.
Oh.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Oh.
You're one little slip away from a nose ring.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that. I could see you with a nose ring.
You think?
Would you do the Zeke Elliott?
Diamond.
Yeah.
If you bought me a $15,000 diamond, I'd put it in my nostril.
I probably would too, actually. And then a week later, I'd sell it.
Yeah. All right. Good in it. Manscaped. Joe Staley. So the Oregon-Ohio State game, John. That's what we're going to talk about next, right?
Yeah.
Oregon-Ohio State is this weekend. And something hit me that I was thinking about. It's a 9 a.m. game.
Body clock.
Pacific. Big noon kickoff in Columbus. And I was thinking about, because this game was supposed to happen last year, the Michigan-Washington game was also supposed to happen last year. Remember, there was a time last year where you were thinking, like, maybe I'll go to one game and then the next week go to the other, or they were on the same weekend, whatever it was. Pac-12 schools were hosting both. We've been talking about this game longer than most people spend planning a wedding. So it's our day. It's finally here Saturday. Like, if you've been talking about Oregon-Ohio State, like I have and like you have, we've been talking about this game a long time because it was supposed to. They were each supposed to get played last year on the other team's sites. Washington and Oregon were supposed to host this game, and Oregon-Ohio State still feels big. Washington, Michigan feels like the big day is almost here. But like on Wednesday, everyone kind of heard that the groom almost called it off, but now he's still going to be in it, and they're still going to have the wedding, but it's not quite the same. It feels a little weird because Washington lost to Montana week 1. Doesn't quite have the same build-up. It's just it's not quite what we hoped it was going to be.
Bobby Hauck
and Montana. But Oregon, Ohio State, this is the game that we've been talking about for a long time. And Kayvon Thibodeau, if you're going to be maybe the number 1 pick, then this is the kind of game you solidify that. The problem is that he's not going to be 100% if he plays. I expect him to play. I don't know if he'll only line up on the right side, so he's not pushing off the left foot, just thinking about ankles.
It's hard in college football. There's no injury report or anything, so they can be pretty mum on it. Huh?
Yeah, although Cristobal is pretty transparent. He said, like, we're trying to figure out what he can do this week. I'll tell you as much as I can without, as I protect my own team. But
so it turned out to be better than it looked when he had the boot on, right?
X-ray negative. I expect him to play. That's just me. I got to think he's going to try and give it a go. I think he's a guy that wants to compete. The program is built on it. This is Ohio State they're playing. So I got to think, John, he's going to be on the field unless the doctors think he could cause further injury to his ankle, which it doesn't seem like that's
Was it an ankle sprain? Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah, he got rolled up kind of on the side. I'm not sure what they're officially calling it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, but look, Oregon has really talented players in this game. Their linebacker who led them in tackles last week, a guy named Justin Flo, the second highest recruit they've ever gotten at Oregon. Thibodeau was number 1. Justin Flo was number 2.
In the history of the program?
In the history of the program. 2 defense linebacker.
Wasn't Noah Sewell like a
Noah Sewell, Panay's younger brother, number 1, 250 pounds. I talked to Bruce Feldman. He thinks in some ways Noah's
How many
more,
fucking linebackers these guys have?
He thinks in some ways he's more talented than Kayvon. Some people think that Noah Sewell is actually more talented than Kayvon Thibodeau in some ways. So they should. I mean, now they got a defense here. They're going up against this Ohio State team that you're going to have to be scoring like 30 points to beat them, 28 to beat them.
You see those wide receivers against Minnesota? They can fly, bro.
Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Yeah.
They can fly.
I know.
I think it's a big moment just for just the West Coast football. Not the Mountain West and the Big Sky who are actually doing well, but just the Pac-12. If these guys can just stay close, they don't even need to win. Just stay close. Like, to me, Montana, Washington, I actually think it's kind of a Harbaugh moment. Like, you might just kick the shit out of these guys. And it won't feel like you're back,
Harbaugh
but it'll
might
be
or
like,
Washington?
yeah, I'm saying Harbaugh just beats them by like 20, 25 points. And it's just like, Jim's just kind of got some mojo back. Are they going to be some national championship team? No, but like maybe he figured some things out. Maybe they're just better. Where this game, it feels like everyone's blowing Mario, and rightfully so, for landing all these sweet recruits. You listed the three guys. I get you just falling 24/7 or whatever. They have recruited incredibly well the last couple of years, right? It's not just the high end, like the number 1 overall guy, but just their classes. So I just question the quarterback they rolled out. Is that guy going to be able to hang at Ohio State? The guy that we just saw against Fresno State.
I
would lean no.
That's what this game's about. Because even with a good defense, you're going to have to score. Unless if you're creating turnovers, that's going to. I think Oregon. They did it last week. They forced 4 fumbles. They have got, I think, to create turnovers because their offense is not as explosive as Ohio State. So they got to take the ball away from them.
The other thing that really stood out to me, it was actually I didn't start drinking until this game ended, and it was just so locked in. It was remarkable. That Fresno State Oregon, just that I'm made for that 3-hour stretch. Like I'm put on this earth to consume that thing on a couch. The Dogs, I would say. Now, the Pac-12 the last couple of years is not known to have great defensive lines, right? Probably like Oregon does right now, or like Chip did once upon a time with Buckner and Armstead. The Dogs were shoving around their offensive line, constantly getting pressure. I don't pretend to know every dude on Ohio State's front, but I know they got dudes.
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to block them? Now, Mario's an O-line guy, but like the Dogs guy were constantly in the backfield. The Fresno State against Oregon. That, to me, is a little concerning. Beside even the quarterback.
I think part of it is just that you got to scare them with the pass to relieve some of that pressure. You've got to hit some throws to relieve some pressure.
He missed, I remember one, like kind of a deep crossing, like a skinny post type that the guy would have just been off to the races. And the dude laid out Giancarlo Stanton style the other night. You see that catch by Stanton? Mm-hmm. Pretty nice catch in the outfield. He dove. Might not even have been as crazy, but when you're 6'8" and you dive, it just feels like you're covering a lot of ground. The whole place went nuts. But do you remember the pass the Oregon guy made? And he had him cutting across the middle, and the dude and it's just like, oh my God, you can't hit that throw. Maybe it's his first game. I heard a lot of people defending Chris Stroud, and rightfully so, because that first half.
Is his name Chris?
No, it's CJ. Chris, I think, was another athlete somewhere once upon a time. CJ Stroud. That some of these guys, especially when you start for the Ohio States, Clemson's, Bama, like not everyone just hits the ground running and looks like Bryce. Like sometimes you have a rough half. It's the first game the guy's ever started. By the second half, I was like, God, this guy's pretty good. Yeah, he'll probably be fine. More than likely, he's a good player.
Oh, you liked his 5 completions for 236 yards and 4 touchdowns in the second half?
Now, some of them were layup throws. The guy was wide open, but he did make a couple. He's an athletic guy. They're going to get layup throws in college.
Yeah, with these guys, people think this is maybe the greatest combo of Ohio State receivers ever. And they've had
2
great
first
receivers.
Rounders. Yeah,
so
scary. Do you think Oregon keeps it close?
I do think they can, but they've got to create turnovers. I don't think Ohio
No,
State's,
they can. Do you trust that they do? It's hard to say
I think they do. I think they do.
That place is going to be going apeshit.
I know.
That place is going to be bananas.
It's going to be like 100,000. It's going to be 100,000 people.
I think Ohio State and Michigan are going to look awesome.
I think one thing, as crazy as it sounds, it's a disadvantage to be playing 9 a.m. body clock. You know who hates noon kickoff games? Like the fans.
No.
The fans who attend the games don't love them.
I think they're used to it in that part of the country, though, don't you?
No, because they've still got like 5,000 tickets available, which is not a lot. Like they got 100,000 people there. But normally, like these things are like those. If this game was at night, I think it would have been sold out a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be any noticeable difference. It's going to feel like a huge game.
Did they sing Mr. Brightside when you went to University of Michigan game?
I never. Where did that come from? I saw that the other day. I don't remember that at all. I don't. Do you even understand the tradition?
No, absolutely not. But it looked really cool on the video.
I love the part of the song where I even know, like, I don't quite know the words.
Yeah.
And then you could tell the whole stadium, people just kind of mumbling. And, yeah, Mr. Brightside.
I do wonder if they put the lyrics on the video board.
They probably do.
That would be my move. But I that has to be something they got instituted the last couple of years.
But how? Why? Does somebody
don't
know?
It did sound pretty cool when everyone's singing it.
Yeah, you get
and I
100,000
was thinking, like,
people
I
singing.
saw a lot of people replying, how did they get 100,000 people to learn their words? When you have 100,000 people, you only need probably 40 of them to be really loud for it to, like, echo through the whole town, right? 40,000 people
song.
singing at the same time would be a lot.
It was a big
I mean, it's
song.
not 100,000 people. Not every grandma in the stands is singing word for word.
Right. But, I mean,
There might be a FOMO aspect, though. If everyone's singing and you see the video, you're like, I'll sing too.
if you're a season ticket holder, you know the song by halfway through the season. So if they've been going 3-4 years, you've heard the song a million times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, okay.
You want to dive into Fresno State Cal Poly, or
Is there a line on
Cal
that
Poly
game?
just coming off a win against University of San Diego?
Are they
I don't
still
think
running
put
the
line
veer?
on there. It's a great question. I don't know.
Hard to
I hope
prepare
not.
for. I mean, you do not want
It
to
is-
play
it is hard to
Navy,
prepare for.
Air
No, you
Force.
don't.
I mean, it's not the veer, but you know what I'm saying. Chop blocks. You
Basically
can't really
is.
practice
Yeah.
those.
James Noble used to run for a K when I was there. every
James
year.
Noble, Cal Poly, that was the guy.
Yeah, he was a running back. He was good.
Ramses Barden, wasn't that your receiver?
Yeah, James Noble made like Robbie Rouse or Deion Lewis look like Earl Campbell. He was probably 5'2", but he was a dominant player. I mean, legitimately like 5'6". I guess Robbie was 5'6" too, but Robbie was a better player.
All right, everybody. So here's the deal. We're going to go watch some football. Coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific, Joe Staley, a conversation with Joe Staley will debut on our YouTube channel. This is Thursday night at 8. You can check that out. Please watch that. And it'll also, if you miss it, it'll be in the podcast. This is the podcast for Friday. Joe Staley's conversation will be in the podcast for Friday as well.
Let's do it.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging with us.
Adios.